Hey guys, it's Chris, and I'm back with James from Daily Use of Sports Trivia, and this is going to be a Dragon Raised by Wolves Part 4.
I can't believe you just said that. I hope this lives up to the way I do everything else in life. Overpromise, underdeliver.
That's right.
No,
That's right.
The opposite of that. The opposite of that.
Right. All right, so let's dig in and figure out how this damn thing's going to end on the Dragon Raised by Wolves Part 4.
Major ending is going to take place, because as you do that, I think I'll be throwing some names and situations.
So as in a locale,
yeah,
the location, yeah. So I do have this in my mind. This is what I've been thinking of for a while, and I'm pretty sure on this one actually. You know, there's going to be some guesses as far as the actual detail, because there's a lot of videos out there about how this is going to end. You know, kind of general.
Yeah.
You know, somebody will end up here. They'll be doing this, but there's no details. And you know, this will be kind of general, but I want to throw out a few details if we can, and at least a few guesses. And if we're wrong, because nobody can figure this out.
You've sold me on this.
Yeah, if you look at a map of Westeros, and you just stare at the map, you know, what stands out?
Yeah.
What stands out? What stands out is very unnatural. And then when I started thinking about this, I actually looked into it a little bit a couple weeks ago.
I'm looking at the map on the wall. I can't help myself.
So the spot that stands out is the God's Eye. And what stands out about it is if you think about it in comparison to the wall, right? If you look at this map, which is supposed to be to scale, that thing is at least 100 miles wide, which is very unnatural, and it has an island right in the dead center. So I started looking this stuff up just out of curiosity, and I actually found a couple of videos, and if I find them, I'll be glad to link them in the description. But somebody actually started looking into this and how unnatural this actually was in the real world.
In the real world.
And there was very few places, nothing like it in the world, except for a couple ones that they were explained, and it went into all kinds of impact craters and the angles and stuff like that of what it would look like and why there would be an island. And usually there's one on the side, you know, that it's built up something or whatever. But the point being, it's very unnatural.
And it looks like an eye.
And as far as the story goes, we've heard about the Isle of Faces only a few times, and I think that's for a reason. I think if he talked about it too much in the books, and in the show for that matter, which really hasn't been mentioned at all,
he would almost be leading
people
to that conclusion.
So here's the thing. We've heard about the Isle of Faces on basically 2 or 3 occasions. The first one being the Tourney of Harrenhal story. When Hallan Reed came to the Tourney of Harrenhal, he was just at the Isle of Faces when he got there. Before he ran into Lyanna and the Starks and all that, and with the Tourney of Harrenhal where Rhaegar and Lyanna met, he was at the Isle of Faces studying with the Order of the Green Men. Now, what's the Order of the Green Men? So if we go back in history a little bit, it is the location where the original pact was shook on, I guess, between the first men and the Children of the Forest after their drawn-out war that never really led to anything but destruction.
Is this the pact where they say we're going to quit cutting down the weirwood trees?
Yes, absolutely. So this is the pact where the men said, okay, we'll take this land, you take the deep woods, we'll stop cutting down your weirwood trees. You know, that's part of the agreement. And they carved, this is the biggest grove of weirwoods in the south that was remaining on this little island in the middle of this perfect little round lake that's 100 miles wide at least. And they carved the faces in for all the gods to witness, in other words, the green seers. And that has been glossed over so much in the books that it makes me think, okay, something's going down there. So the other person that's been there is Adam Valerian during the Dance of the Dragons. He rode Sea Smoke, and during the Dance of the Dragons, he went there to study with the Green Men or get some advice. And at the second Battle of Tumbleton, which was a battle during the Dance of the Dragons, he died there, but he had 4,000 or 5,000 men behind him by the time he had left the Isle of Faces and went into this battle to save King's Landing after being labeled a turncloak. He was trying to prove he was not. For the blacks, on the side of the blacks, which was the blacks and greens, were the labels that people put on the Targaryen Civil War. So 2 people that we know of in this entire story of 5 books with thousands and thousands of pages have been to this place.
And it's so huge.
It's
and
so huge. You would think
like it would draw everybody.
Right. You would think that there would be, you know, some stories about going and seeing, you know, this, because it's history to them at this point.
Some king along the way would want to put a big ass castle in the
Right.
middle of it.
And Harrenhal and Harren the Black did put one north of it.
Okay.
That's where Harrenhal is. It's directly north of it, but he did not put it on the island or go visit the island that we know. We know nothing about it, so I think that that's where this story ends.
We'll tie that into, because didn't you say it's like still to this day biggest collection of weirwood trees?
Yeah, apparently it's still the biggest grove of weirwoods in the South, maybe in the whole world.
Tied into weirwood.net. I could see, like, you know, Bloodraven or Bran or something touching a weirwood tree and like going there and meditating or something. Like it's just
yeah, it's got to be. If you think about, you know, what we talked about before in the last three, because we've talked about a lot of events.
I know it.
Weirwood.net is fed off blood, right? We talked about that in several of those, and so if you think about this grove of weirwood trees, and we just don't know enough about it, and they've kind of glossed over it, but kind of thrown it at us a little bit here and there. It's something's there. Something's going, you know. And the other person I was going to say was Hallen Reed, you know, that was there before the Tourney of Harrenhal.
Yeah.
So that brings into question about Hallen Reed. Where has he been?
Okay.
All right, he should have been there first of all when Ned got his head cut off, when Robb raised his banners. He should have been there. But he sent his kids.
Okay, that's right.
He sent his kids instead to swear his fealty. Why? Then, after all that went down, Jon comes back. Ramsay takes over the north.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And then Jon's proclaimed king in the north. Where was he at? All the lords were there after the Battle of the Bastards.
Good point.
Now, the books will still catch up to this, but I'm assuming it'll be basically the same. All the lords were there, the Karstarks, all the lords were there, and, you know, there's going to be some arguments probably in Season 7 about what to do with these houses that didn't want to, you know, be on the Stark side.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
There'll definitely be that discussion, but he should have been there in that moment, too. So, here's the thing. Hallen Reed's coming back in this story. He's the only one that knows, as far as, you know, somebody that lived through it.
The Tower of Joy.
The Tower of Joy.
Yep.
Now, Bran can see that, but Hallen Reed was there.
Yes.
He can vouch for that. There may be a handmaiden or something left somewhere, or they may be dead, we just don't know. So if Hallen Reed wasn't ever at Winterfell, and he's supposed to be such a close friend to Ned Stark, and the Starks for that matter, such loyal bannermen, Hallen Reed is going to be at the Isle of Faces at the end of this damn thing. That's
awesome.
Where he's been. He's been studying again because I think he knows what's going on. I think he has green sight.
I do too.
And I think that he's there with the Order of the Green Men.
I was getting ready to say, do you think there's children left?
I do.
I do too.
I do. Now, on the show, this could go down a little differently. They seem to imply on the show that Leaf was the last of them, but I don't, in the books for sure, there's definitely this order still there. We've heard about it. They said they formed this order to protect the grove after the pact. That was, 8,000 years ago. So there's definitely still some children there, I'm sure, in the books. The show, I'm not so sure. So I think he's been there this entire time. I think he's studying for something. He knows what's going to happen.
And he, as you said, he wasn't there for this event. He wasn't there for that event.
Right.
But with his green sight, you think he's in the know?
I think he's in the know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he knew, obviously, what happened with Ned. Everybody finds out. People send ravens. Why send your kids?
Yeah.
Why send your kids? Well,
because there was a time.
Because he knew Bran needed to get to Bloodraven.
Yep.
Already. So he sent them for that. So you go do that. I'm going to go down here to the Green Men again. Because he's the only one alive that's been there before. And I'm going to go figure out what the hell's going on and figure out what to do. So he knows something, and I guarantee he's not just going to show up at Winterfell one day and say, hey, Jon, by the way, Bran can tell him that. He's going to be at the Isle of Faces.
And I think that since the Children of the Forest had so much to do with the beginning of this mess,
right,
they're going to be there at the end.
Right, and that's the thing.
A perfect spot. If that's where they're still located,
right,
if the Night King wants to get down there, it's got something to do with him wanting to come face to face with his creator.
Right.
I
think so.
And I do think that's drawing him there. So if you're right about them taking the journey down, they're going to have to pass Winterfell, go down through the neck and everything.
Yeah.
What do you see happening along the way? Is it going to be balls out battles the whole way down?
Yeah, I think there's... Yeah, so let's clarify that real quick, though. I think... So what we're saying here is I think that the White Walkers are heading there.
Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit. You're right.
Because a lot of people
Walkers
think...
are heading to the Isle of Faces.
Yeah, I think they're heading to the Isle of Faces. A lot of people think, Winterfell, which, it could be. But I don't think they're just headed to Winterfell. I think we've seen... in Dany's visions, especially on the show, that vision was a lot different from the books, but we saw winter that far south in King's Landing. So, on the way down, as they head there, which is, I think, their endgame, but I think, there's going to be some battles for sure. I don't think it's going to be so much of a...
They're not tiptoeing down through
Right, they're not tiptoeing. There's going to be a lot of people dying. They're bringing the storm. There's going to be a lot of death and destruction, and I think that mirrors old Nan stories.
And again, I don't think that we're jumping the gun here. I think we've explained in the first 3 that the wall's coming down.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. The wall's coming down for sure. There's no doubt about it.
And hell's coming with them. And
hopefully ice spiders as big as hounds.
That's what I want to see. And I want to say that. I want to see the ice spiders more than I want to see an ice dragon. Just because old Nan talked about
just
it.
Because old Nan talked about it.
In the books and all that. And I want to see that. And
well, definitely in the books, but we'll probably not on the show. There's CGI issues.
The whole quest is almost ironic to begin with to me. They're coming down and they're killing a ton of people to ultimately get to what I think is a peaceful goal. Almost. Right. But they know these humans aren't going to let them pass.
Right.
And they have a little evil in them. They can't get past that.
There's definitely vengeance. It's the whole thing. And that's the thing about the whole George R. Martin thing, right? As far as his writing goes. Everything's gray. There's no black and white. And as a matter of fact, he purposely made people like the Night's Watch, who are looked at as the good guys, wear black.
Good point.
Things like that. So
like the old Westerns.
Yeah.
If you saw black, they were bad guys.
Black hat, white hat. That whole thing's reversed with the Night's Watch. He did all that stuff on purpose. But at the same time, he's not going to go so far out of bounds for it to not make sense. But this is an anti-war story told with a lot of damn war, and that's the point. You see the War of the Five Kings, and what did it accomplish? It accomplished nothing. It tore the land up. It destroyed families and houses and all that stuff and brought them down. This lust for power. He's talking about feudalism here, and he flips tropes on their heads as far as typical fantasy tropes. But at the same time, he did admire Tolkien.
Right,
Lord of the Rings, and he fought.
So much so that he put the 2 initials or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Same
Mine says
reason.
R. Martin, right?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So but he's not going to go so far out of balance that it's just ridiculous. If that makes any sense.
No, it does.
In other words, when you have an ice zombie horde coming your way, what are you supposed to do?
No, you can't.
You have to fight.
Yeah.
So, so the key with Jon here, this being about Jon particularly, is that he has always been, and he's been doing this the entire time, he's been the peacemaker. He's been the guy who does the right thing. He doesn't want power, but he's pushed into those positions.
Yeah.
And now he's already king of the North. He never asked for that. Now, he secretly, being a bastard and all that growing up, dreamed of stuff like that, but he never really wanted that. He got pushed into being Lord Commander. So, he's the one he's the key to bringing this thing together, and ultimately there's going to be some battles. You're going to see some dragons and ice demons fighting, but it's got to end in another repeat of history, because everything in this story repeats history.
And what we can't forget is, at this point in our story, it's not humans versus the dead just yet. We still have Cersei and King's Landing, Euron, we got to deal with here.
Right.
While at the same time trying to build an army, not to fight that, but to fight the bigger threat.
So you still have, like you said, Cersei and all them trying to, hold on to everything she has, which she's basically lost it all with Euron now.
Yeah.
And then Jon, who's trying to rally every house together and say, forget all your damn bullshit, just like he did with the Wildlings and the Night's Watch.
Yeah.
That was kind of the prelude to this.
It's exactly what it was, yeah.
It was showing you exactly what he's trying to do. And so you still got... So that's why I think it's going to move, as far as the show goes, it's going to move fairly quickly.
As far as dealing with Cersei and Euron.
Let's get all the political shit out of the way. Season 8, all War for the Dawn.
Do you see in any way Cersei and Euron coming on board to fight the bigger battle, or are they going to have to be...
I think she'll pretend to. But ultimately, she ultimately, her, it's like she'll use it as an opportunity to try to get rid of her enemies.
Yep.
When her real enemies are the ones they're talking about, the White Walkers. But she still thinks it's the Stark or the Reach or whatever. So she'll use that and try to, like every decision she ever makes.
Yeah.
She'll think it's smart and it'll blow up in her damn face.
Yeah.
And then she'll have that oh shit moment where, okay, this is it, and she'll try the wildfire trick again, and Jaime will shove a sword through her back, and that'll be the end of the whole political thing.
All right, I like that.
So that's
what happens with Euron? Does he ever put a foot on land?
Yeah,
or do those dragons go out there?
In the show, he will, but I don't think in the show that he's going to be that big of a deal. I think in the books it's a different story. Euron,
because you said he had the horn.
He had the horn. He's got the horn, and I think he got the horn with the dragon egg. See, he had found a dragon egg that he said he threw overboard.
Right?
No. He used that dragon egg to either get the horn or hire a faceless man to kill Balon in the books, because it was completely different as far as how it went down. So Euron's definitely going to play a bigger role in the books, but at the same time, I think the endgame is fairly similar as far as, what we're talking about here.
Well,
as far
to
as the
deal
goal.
with, again, we're going to wrap this up, but I still, as he talks, I want to remind him of little things. To deal with Cersei, you have to deal with the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Jaime killing her and the mountain possibly killing him afterwards, or is the mountain dealt with prior to Jaime killing her?
Yeah, I mean, I would say,
because I want Jaime to leave.
I do too, and that's the thing. But that's the whole bittersweet thing, right?
The whole thing's going to be bittersweet.
I mean, a lot of people is going to be wiped out because it's going to illustrate what war does, and that's what it's about. So, yeah, I think that Jaime, with all the hints saying we came into the world together, we're going out together, I think either A, he commits suicide after he kills Cersei.
Okay.
So I think he takes himself out.
Okay.
Or if the mountain's not dealt with yet by like a dragon, if Dany's already there and there's some kind of conflict once she tries to betray Dany and Jon and the whole crew trying to rally the round together for the White Walkers, then yeah, I could see something like that happening with the mountain. But I would say I would lean towards him committing suicide before the mountain killing him.
We were thinking it would be cool if the Hound did something with fire, since that's what he's afraid of.
Yeah, that's right. And I forgot I'd brought that up in was it part 2 or 3?
Right.
I thought it would be pretty ironic for the Hound to, with this great redemption arc he's on, which I love it. Like, he could go away right now and be great. It would be a great ending for him, like he tried to do. Mm-hmm. He did try to do that.
He did.
But violence followed him. It's like it found him. It's kind of like his curse. With him being afraid of fire, and they made it a point to show his backstory, several times, and then the Blackwater Bay scene, with the fire in his face, and that's when he left and finally said, "The hell with all this shit, I'm out of here. Fuck the king." Right? I'm just gonna go eat chicken. I think it would be ironic for him to go out in a blaze of glory, perhaps with fire,
because his brother's the one that used fire,
burn his face
to scar him for life and turn him into what he feels like is probably a monster.
Yes,
that would be an awesome ending.
I hope him
that,
going out in a for something bigger than himself and not being focused on the revenge of killing his brother.
Okay, yeah.
That's his arc.
I like that.
Although I would like to see Clegane Bowl for sure.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't love to see Clegane Bowl? And him actually win.
Well, most of the people I've asked you about so far are tough guys in their own right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell, you got to be tough to live in that era.
But there's two that aren't so tough that I want to ask you about, and that is Varys,
right,
and Sam. All right. How did these, softer men? What is Varys's role in this as far as his little birds aren't going to fight White Walkers and shit?
Right.
I mean, what's his
Yeah,
game
I
here?
think that I think Varys legitimately wants a Targaryen restoration, and it may be in the books Blackfire or whatever, but he legitimately wants good for the realm. I honestly believe that. I don't think he wants to be in power of any sort or whatever. I think he legitimately cares about the country. So it's one of those things with him and Sam where Sam's not going to go out in a blaze of glory fighting with a sword. I mean, if he would be, he's not craven anymore, but if he needed to, he would. But it's kind of illustrating the pen is mightier than the sword with these two.
Okay.
So it's that type of thing. They're going to be just as important as the guys out on the ground.
Yeah.
But
as far as strategies.
As far as strategy and actually doing the dirty work and getting muddy and bloody.
And, yeah.
But these guys are the ones to, you know, so for at least Sam, he's the guy, he's the information guy like we said before. He's the guy that's providing, all right, here's what happened before.
Yeah.
Let's do this again.
Let me give you a history lesson.
Yes.
Here's some strategies. And some pep talks, maybe.
Yeah.
Because Sam does try to throw pep talks at people when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, he's a good counselor, and he's became a good counselor to Jon all these years, and I think that's what happens again.
You want to continue your journey down?
We'll kind of go over like everything we've kind of discussed, not in depth because you have 3 other videos for that.
Right.
But, you know, little things that kind of point to things and then kind of start narrowing it down to, all right, here's what's going to happen. And so we've talked about the Night's King story, you know, which of course was the 13th Lord Commander. People think that that's kind of like the end game, like a kind of a story of the end game, but you know, and it could be, but the timeline again, and that's what's so messed up about trying to figure this stuff out. So the timelines don't match up for a lot of things, and the history could also be wrong on the timelines too.
True.
So, because if you think about like the World of Ice and Fire, it's written from a maester's point of view. So there's probably errors in there. You know, they probably don't know that it was actually 8,000 years. Maybe it was only 4,000 years. You know, stuff like that. But the point being that, you know, why was there a female other? Why were they married? You know, and then he ruled for 13 years, and then the King Beyond the Wall, Jormungand, and the Night's Watch, and the King of Winter, you know, bound together to kill him. But the entire time they were sacrificing kids. So, to me, Craster is kind of the modern version of that because he was the one up there living north of the wall.
Yeah.
He was right with the gods, meaning the White Walkers,
Absolutely.
and giving his sons away. So he was almost like the modern repeat of the Night's King story without the wife. You know, if that makes any sense. So he was giving his sons up because they obviously can't reproduce on their own. Now maybe they could at some point, but we've seen how they do it now. So, you know, that Night's King story, you know, what can you pull from that? We've talked about the crypts in Winterfell. What's down there? Is there something magical about Winterfell? You know, the name itself, you know, Winterfell. You know, could that have been in reference to an old ice dragon that died there? We talked about some of that.
Yes.
We've talked about the Dance with Dragons. The biggest thing I pulled with the Dance with Dragons is the whole Adam Valerian, the God's Eye piece, because he's one of the only 2 people that we know in this story who's been there. And then they kind of gloss over it, and that's the end. You don't hear anything else about it, no detail. We've talked about the Pact of Ice and Fire that never happened.
Yeah.
And how that would have been an Ice and Fire baby, you know, or a Targaryen and a Stark joining in the union of marriage, therefore having children. And if that would have happened, we would have never got as far as we are in our story now, I think. So I think we've established that the White Walkers are likely reacting to Jon's birth, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I still think it's a possibility that, you know, I'm not 100% on that. I think it could be, you know, depending on what the pact was before, right? That's what we don't know. We don't know what they agreed to the first time. Because obviously they didn't kill them all.
Right.
They went away for a reason. And they might even help build the wall. You know, like, here's our land, here's your land. We'll help you throw this shit up. But then again, you got
y'all stay on that side.
Yeah,
it's our wall as much as it's yours almost.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, what better race to help build a giant ass ice wall than magical ice creatures that can manipulate ice, you know? And if you believe that they built it with giants and mammoths and raising blocks of ice up, then go ahead, but I don't necessarily buy that.
Yeah.
So
not something that massive.
Right. It's just too huge for that time period. So I mean, it's like an ancient wonder of the world. And so, you know, you got to try to pick these little things out and figure out what you can pull from it, because these stories are there for a reason. You know, you got to figure out, like, all right, you got this ancient story here of whatever. What kind of equals that today? Because there's a lot of symmetry in this story. There's a lot of symmetry. There's a lot of parallels.
We've established that,
and it's a big loop.
Yeah,
it's a big loop. So whenever we start narrowing down, you know, what we're going to say for our guesses for the end game here, it's definitely going to be a repeat of history and a parallel to something that's already happened. So if you think about the themes and all these little things from the stories, the backstories, and the Tourney and Harrenhal, and the Dance of the Dragons, and the, you know, the tragedy at Summerhall for that matter, and pull all these little things, I think ultimately what we're saying here is that the White Walkers are reacting to Jon's birth.
Right.
They're heading down to where I'm pretty sure this thing's going to end. You know, everything else may be wrong, but I'm most hopeful that it's going to end.
I like it.
at the God's Eye.
I think it's solid.
And I think that's where they're heading. So they're reacting to something. They have a goal in mind, and I think that goal is basically, because here's the thing. We're going back to the theme about gray versus black and white.
Yes.
Yes, they're doing bad shit. They're killing innocent people, you know, all kinds of things. They have that vengeance there, obviously, for their creators, the children.
They do.
So I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to get vengeance on the children, but at the same time, I think they want the curse removed. Because it is a curse. Now, they have a culture, apparently. They have a language. So it's hard to say. Maybe they don't want it. But you would think, though, that, you know, being turned to something like that and kind of made to live that kind of, you know, where they live and how they live.
Yeah.
And that kind of a harsh lifestyle, or whatever you want to call it, you would think that they want that reversed or taken away, and that could mean actual death. So in the long run, so from their point of view, they're going to destroy man or whatever gets in their way, and they may see man as a threat to the realm. If you go into the kind of political beliefs of George R.R. Martin, you bring in those kind of modern political things into his, which is probably goes into his writing because that's things he believes. Then they see in themselves as saving Westeros from man. But I think as far as the actual story goes, they want out of they want to basically end this 8,000-year reign of this curse.
And the 13th Lord Commander, he got with another who was, like we talked about in part 1 or 2 or something like that. She was like the only documented White Walker.
Right. The female.
They have to be pissed about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. During that time, right, and during that time,
they were feeding them kids.
Yes.
To keep them off of.
Exactly.
I'll make up for your loss.
Right. By giving you another way to reproduce.
Okay. Maybe I should say what I think's going to happen because I'm not going to have a lot of answers to why. Mine's more of a guess. Yours is more of a...
Mine's still a guess, too.
Really educated guess, though.
Well, more of an educated guess, sure. But, you know, it's just so hard to get some details.
Mine's from the gut, okay? But I want to ask you a couple things before we get there. All right. When you're talking about them reacting to Jon's birth, and he was... You know, this whole thing was built around him being the Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
And his magical DNA from both ends of the spectrum mixed together, that's going to allow him to do something that no other human in Westeros can do.
Exactly. I mean,
whether that be get close enough to him, you know, or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm under the feeling, yeah, they seem menacing and monstrous and everything, but they want to get Jon there at the at God's Eye, okay,
Yep.
Isle of Faces, because in front of their creators, because they were pretty much made to just be bodyguards, correct?
Yeah, they were made to be an army because children could not fight men with their bronze.
Right.
I mean, that's basically all it boils down to. And after that, as a matter of fact, after they, you know, had the whole pact thing at the God's Eye, then the White Walkers came during the first long night. Okay. After they had already created them, had a pact and everything, they started supplying the Night's Watch with dragon glass. So, I mean, they gave them dragon glass every year, like it was a regular thing back in the day before, you know, the modern times that we know. So that begs the question, and this is kind of what me and you were talking about the other night when we were talking about filming this final episode, was if he's got a piece of dragon glass in his chest, can he be killed by dragon glass?
And see, my answer to that is I don't think so.
I don't either.
I don't either.
So I think, obviously
all the other ones can.
Yes, obviously they can.
What are 12 or 13 of the bastards?
Yeah, there should be 11 left if we're right. If we're counting right in the show,
I think they can, but he cannot. And for some reason, I can't get out of my head that he wants to get Jon down there, whether he baits him, because Jon would come willingly if they could just communicate.
Right, that's the thing. How does that happen? How did Craster, we talked about that before, how did he ever start this conversation?
He has to create an issue on the Isle of Faces to draw Jon there, I believe. Now, maybe though Bran can see something and tell Jon, whatever. He wants Jon there because Jon is the only one who can pull that out of his chest. Now, he doesn't know what's going to happen. Is he going to get his humanity back? Is he going to drop dead?
Right.
I think he's ready for either of those.
Right. As long as it removes the curse, is what you're saying.
Yes. All right. So, I think he wants to do it in front of his creators because I do believe there are children of the Forest on that island still, like you said. And there may be a lot of things I'm missing here that you can fill in that could, cause that not to be so or whatever.
No, I mean, as far as what you said so far, I mean, I generally agree. I think, they're going, that's the place they're headed. I think they're headed there because they want to eradicate their creators on the way and then get rid of the curse, which is going to involve him dying somehow. The thing is, though,
because he's going to be able to walk to the island. I think when he brings winter, the water's going to freeze.
It should, being fresh water, right.
And he's going to walk to that island.
Because obviously salt water is a problem. We've seen that at Harrenhal.
But this is fresh water.
Exactly. It's fresh water. It should be.
Which is what he's walking on, fresh water that's frozen snow.
Exactly.
He can walk across that.
He's going, I think you're right. And I think we're on the same page there, at least as far as the location's concerned and the reasoning. He's going there. But the thing is this has to end in some kind of balance.
And now, we need to talk about what does bittersweet mean.
Yeah, I mean, bittersweet could mean a lot of different things because it's going to be different to everybody. When Martin says it's going to have a bittersweet ending, and he really enjoyed the end of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien and how, Sauron was defeated and the ring was destroyed, but Frodo, it changed him forever. He left Middle-earth. Okay, well, this could still happen in Game of Thrones or Ice and Fire. For example, the Night's King could just simply be killed. But the bitter part of that would be that you're going to lose a lot of people we like and love, main characters, and the land's going to be decimated. And there's a dream of spring at the end of this thing. A little hint of things getting back to normal. The system changes, no more medieval, feudalism. I think that's the bigger story there too. So, however it ends, it's going to be a repeat of history, but it's going to be balanced. And the only way it can be balanced is if there's still ice demons up here and Targaryens over here with fire-breathing dragons, or none of it.
Or none, yeah.
That's the only way it can end. It's the only way it can end in a balance. And if you follow the theme of balance and the symmetry and all that stuff we originally started talking about in part 1.
Well, my thought is this. They're coming. Everybody's trying to keep them from coming.
Right.
All right. They don't know that they're on this mission to end the curse. All right, so there's tons of people dying, and when they die, the White Army gets
raise more
bigger.
That's right.
So they're almost undefeatable. When Jon pulls the dragon glass out of his chest, I think all the whites cease to exist. They go back to
I would agree with
corpses.
That. I think that magic ends and they drop.
All right, the other 11 of how many of those are left that haven't been killed with dragonglass during this battle, whatever happens to the Night King, is going to happen to them. They're going to die. They're going to turn back to human. Whatever. But what happens to Benjen?
Yeah, I mean, Benjen. That's the thing. If we're seeing magic being, because basically in our story, it's almost the reversal of Lord of the Rings. Like I was saying before, when we were talking outside. Magic went away in that story, and it became like the normal men taking over, that type of thing. In our story, magic's been on the rise.
Yes.
So it either ends with a culmination where magic's back and everything's balanced somehow with magic. Like I said, both you'd still have to have the White Walkers, with a treaty of some sort, or you would have to have both eradicated at some point, and then it drops back off the magic levels and kind of becomes this new world with men and no more magical things. That would be kind of bittersweet too, in a way. So there's a lot of ways you can interpret that.
And one more thing I want to ask you too that I wrote down. In all these comments, there's always people guessing who the 3 dragon riders are going to be.
Yeah.
Are they necessary? Because she can control them all.
Not necessarily. It's not absolutely necessary.
She sick them on fleets of ships and this and that.
Right. It's not necessary, but George R. Martin has said, for example, when people are asking him about dragon riders, they don't have to be Targaryens.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean they don't have to have Valyrian blood, you know, because there's a blood bond there, you know, that's probably weakened over the centuries. Just like, you know, the Starks had a bond with dire wolves and stuff like that before, and this, you know, so it's very parallel.
Good
more symmetry.
Yeah.
So there is a blood bond. So
clearly Tyrion has it.
Tyrion seems to have it, at least in the show version, and that's obviously a big theory. Tyrion Targaryen, right? Gendry, you know, Gendry has Valyrian blood. You know, he has King's blood because he's from the Baratheon line, which was created from the Targaryen line, which is what gave Robert Baratheon more of a claim as a usurper.
Okay.
Because he, you know, he has Targaryen blood. So, you know, Gendry could be a fit for that. You know, Jon obviously has it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people guess that Jon, Dany, and Tyrion, or Jon, Dany, and maybe Gendry or whatever. So that's possible, but it's not absolutely necessary, like you said, to fly a dragon. You know, I mean, it's almost like Dany has them under control now, and we'll see how that changes in the books.
True.
Because, you know, we're not quite there yet with the other two. She has, you know, tamed Drogon. But yeah, I mean, it's almost like, you know, sick them and they go do it anyway. Why do you need a rider? But then again, if you do have a rider that can, you know, give those Dracarys commands, it would make it a little more, make it easier.
It would make it a lot easier. So, she could focus on her task at hand,
right?
As she's riding one, Drogon, of course. But okay, so that makes a little sense. I mean, people are really straining their brain on who these.
It is, and because you want to see it too. It's also, you do want to see it. You do want to see it. Looks bad. You know, one of my favorite scenes in season 6 was not just the Battle of the Bastards. It was the Battle of Fire and Marine.
Hell yes.
That was one of my favorite scenes, I think, probably in the show. Just the scene of when they're panned back and the dragons are flying and, you know, breathing flame. That was one of my favorite scenes in the whole damn show. I
do want to see some Unsullied fighting some whites. I mean, that's just going to be badass. And that Dothraki army, the Horde. That's going to be wicked. That battle go down. So again, like you say, visually, there's things you want to see.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're going to make it.
How's the Dothraki army going to deal with 30-degree weather or whatever?
Exactly.
You know, it's going to be a trip.
But that's right, because they're coming south, and it's going to be snowing. We got the shot that I talked about in one of the filming news videos. It's now snowing in King's Landing. That's very far south.
Well, how big of a key for your decision was Dany's vision?
I think it's important. So as far as the show goes, in the books, you know, it's a completely different story as far as all these visions, and there's a lot to interpret there. And you know, a lot of it may be bullshit. Prophecy, we don't know. We just don't know if prophecy's bullshit. There's lots of hints that it's, you know, accurate, and there's lots of hints that it's all nonsense. That's kind of where he plays with these tropes too, as far as fantasy. So I think the throne room vision is.
That's the one I'm actually thinking of. Yeah.
You see her walking through King's Landing. Obviously, you're in the throne room in the Red Keep, and there's holes in the ceiling from, obviously, it's fire.
Like you said, it's the first thing you see.
It's the first thing you see. It's snowing. It's definitely not ash. It's snow. She turns over. She sees the throne with snow on the throne. And she reaches out to touch it. Exactly, snow with a capital S. She reaches out to touch it, and then she hears her dragons and does not touch the throne. So that represents Jon, obviously. He is the rightful heir if you consider the bloodlines rightful. Although, again, you have conquest versus bloodlines. That's the whole hierarchy thing, the feudalism thing. That's going away. I'm going to tell you right now, one thing I'll go ahead and say is at the end of this thing, nobody sits the Iron Throne. There's no ruler. I mean, you may have like we talked about before a little bit, a republic style or a new state style thing where they go back to individual states.
And but I think that's Dany and Tyrion.
Even if even if Dany ends up on the throne as kind of like the federal ruler,
yes,
it's not going to be that throne. She's going to get rid of all that old shit that represents the past and her evil dad and all that stuff. That's gone. So this is not about the Game of Thrones. That was just the first book. The first book was about the Game of Thrones, or the first couple.
Okay.
You know, if that makes sense.
I asked you, actually, just the other day about Tormund and how if he survives this, I said, do you think she will make him like the new Mance Rayder kind of?
Yeah, I think that Jon, before it gets to that point with her, I think Jon will give him the Dreadfort.
Okay.
I think Bolton's are gone.
Okay.
And I think he gets the Dreadfort, and I'm guessing there is going to be some. This is probably what will be some of the drama between Sansa and Jon.
Yeah.
Sansa will want to say, fuck everybody who didn't help us during the Battle of the Bastards.
Yes.
Jon's going to say, look, you can't blame these people's kids for what their fathers did, similar to Dany, because we heard the whole father speak
God,
with
I can hear him
Dany.
saying exactly that.
And so, yeah, we need to let the Karstarks keep, stay in the fold and become lords again and, subservient to House Stark and the Umbers and everybody else who didn't answer the call.
You refused the call.
And so I think that's some of the drama between Sansa and Jon.
That's a good.
But to go back really quick, I
Sure.
didn't quite answer your question about the throne room.
Yeah.
Is the fire dragon fire, or is it from Cersei's wildfire attempt? Now, it could not happen at all. It could have been a possible future. Like, here's what's possibly happened. It could have been, because it looked like dragon fire from above, because wildfire would encompass everything. Matter of fact, if she set it off right, it would blow the damn place up.
That's okay. That's a good point.
Like the
Right there.
sept.
Yeah.
The sept exploded.
We need to settle on that then. I think it's not wildfire.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with this vision she's seeing is dragon fire because it's from the roof. It looks like Harrenhal. You can see
Yes, it does.
It looks, it's from the top.
Okay.
So that's a potential future, but I think Tyrion talks her out of that.
Okay.
Even in the books, I think Tyrion
Cool.
talks her out of attacking with dragons King's Landing because look what happened to Harrenhal.
Okay. So, to kind of sum up my guess at what's going to happen, it all starts with Sam in the Citadel.
Okay.
All right, and I think everybody has missed the boat on this. He's not there trying to get the recipe for Valyrian steel. He's not there trying to figure out anything like how to fight them. He has put two major pieces that all of y'all have missed together. The symbols that they have left that represent them.
Children of the Forest, you mean? Is that what you're referring to?
The
Okay.
spiral
The spiral
symbols and everything. He realizes that it's the same design that's on my shirt. I'm
Exactly.
the key. I am the key. So you will be seeing me, not this season.
But in season 8, you have been cast.
In season 8, I've been cast to.
Congratulations, man. That's
Thank you.
I'm
And listen,
so cool to be sitting beside a damn TV show star,
awesome.
man.
I'm telling you, I couldn't believe it when they called me. And, what we will also see is kind of like Shrek and the donkey / dragon hybrid
Yes.
babies.
Yes.
There will be direwolf / dragon hybrids.
Dargans.
Okay, all the humor aside, I truly believe that they want their humanity back.
Yeah, that wouldn't be anatomically correct. 4 wing. Yeah, you can't have 4 legs and wings.
Damn it! It would have been a good. It would have been cool as hell to see, though.
Yes, it would.
So I do believe the walkers want their humanity back, and they are coming to the Isle of Faces, and I would have never thought of that had you not said that.
Right.
But I believe they're on a mission there. I think my bittersweet ending is Jon sacrifices himself somehow, and this is through Bran. Bran tells him, listen, this is what he wants you to do. He wants you to pull this out of his chest and end all this. But by you doing so, this is what's going to happen. And it comes down to some decision to where Jon is sacrificing himself. When he pulls it out, he's going to die too. I don't know if it's almost like, in The Exorcist when he pulled the demon out and the demon jumped straight in him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm picturing something crazy like that.
Or maybe he takes on the curse and kind of does the Night King thing, but it's a different kind of a thing. Where
he's like binging almost.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. But I just believe that. I believe that's the bittersweet. Is Jon is the key to ending it,
But he's got to go.
he's got to go.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I believe he'll die not knowing that he has a child in Dany's belly.
See, you've been reading my notes, right?
I have not. I have not. We've talked a lot.
He's been reading my notes.
We've talked a lot. I didn't
Even though I have no real notes except for a couple like little points.
I have not done that, but we've talked so much.
I know.
So
we've had a lot of conversations out on the front porch.
Your explanation's going to be way longer and better than
mine.
Well,
I don't know. That's it. No, James has got it.
That's where I see it ending. So I just see Dany being left without a father to her unborn child, and she sets up, like we've talked about in other parts of this. I don't think it's been in other videos as much as in the other 3 parts of this series. How she's going to set up a lot of women on these thrones.
Yeah.
And at the end, I have a list of survivors that I think will still be alive.
Okay.
I think Dany, Arya, Bran, Tyrion, and Tormund for sure. That's the ones I think for sure. So that's my guess, but I do have to just say that I'm predicting a scene that's going to go down like this. When the spell is broken, because I do know Jon is willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. He's going to, even though he'll be warned, he'll do it. But I just picture this all-out battle, like the Battle of the Bastards, and everybody's exhausted and everything, and then all the whites just drop. Right. And you see these humans just looking around at each other, just breathing heavy, looking around at whoever's left, the survivors.
Yeah, the very few, right.
Yeah, and going, what the fuck just happened?
Exactly.
It's the damnedest thing.
He did it.
Yeah.
Maybe they know that he's on a mission down to do something.
And when they find out that he did that, they'll say, that's Jon.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's where I'm at. Now, okay, shoot.
Basically, if I had to narrow this down, and I'll start general, and then I'll put a few detailed guesses. But basically, again, the White Walkers are reacting to Jon. I think if it's not Jon, it's something near that time period. It could be depending on because we just don't know what their original agreement was. Mm-hmm. But I think they're heading to the Isle of Faces. I think that's where it ends. I think that's why it's been glossed over in the books. We hadn't seen it at all on the show at all. But there's enough little hints, subtle hints in the books about the Isle of Faces, the Order of the Green Men. I do think Howland Reed is involved. I think he's there. Yeah. I think the Reeds in general are already interbred with the Children of the Forest because the way they're described, their stature. I think they have green sight abilities. We saw Jojen. I think his father has it. So he's involved. He's already there. He's almost waiting for Jon in a way. I don't see him just showing up at Winterfell now. He should have already been there if he was going to be there. Good
point.
So you're going to have this, Jon and Dany working together, even with Cersei, even reaching out to Cersei and the Lannisters before, they end up dying because she will. The wall is going to come down. The way it's going to come down is exactly like we saw the cave come down. He's going to test it with a little touch of the ground, and we'll see the crevice come up, and we're going to see a big epic scene at the end of season 7 in the show, and I'm not sure if that'll be the Winds of Winter, and I'm sure that'll be Winds of Winter in the book. I think this thing has to end with balance, so I think they end up going down to the Isle of Faces after Sam, in combination with Sam and Bran, it being the information guys, and he's looking at actual history, Bran seeing actual history through his own eyes. Right. They're going to get together, they're the brainstormers, and they're going to say, look, here's what they had to do last time. This has to end in balance. You got Jon and Dany building this thing. They don't even know what's going on until Bran and Sam give him the correct information. The Night's King, from his point of view, is doing the right thing. He's coming down and he wants to break this curse to save the realm from men. And he wants to break this curse because it's still a horrible curse. He's still got some vengeance there too. And destroy his creators and therefore their magic. And this thing has to end in balance. So here's the detailed little guess.
Awesome.
There's been too many hints in the books about how Weirwood.net works.
Okay.
The trees. And we've said it in a couple of other videos.
Talking about the blood. Okay.
If there's no point to Jon being a special Targaryen / Stark, the first one in history that we know of, unless the original last hero was somehow Valyrian, which we talked about this in our Q&A yesterday. Valyrians should not have been around when the first men were around and the children because they were relatively young compared to the children. as far as the Valyrian freehold and the Targaryens coming out of that and all that stuff. So the timelines don't fit for that, but there's a possibility it's all wrong. And the first one, the first original last hero, Azor Ahai, Prince that was promised, whatever, was perhaps another Jon, another version of Jon, like almost like a Neo. Every so often we have the chosen one.
Good comparison.
Everything's in a cycle.
Yes.
So it's got to end in balance. So we've got a lot of hints, and I always point out, for some reason, it just sticks out in my head from A Feast for Crows, Brienne, and she has a chapter where she kills a couple guys after she meets Sam's dad and stuff, looking for Sansa. And it doesn't have to be there in the chapter, but it's there. Bury them under the weirwood tree. She kills 2 people beside a weirwood tree, and they tell his pod to bury them there. We get all these hints throughout chapters, various chapters in all the books about blood, weirwood trees.
Yes.
Even when Bran shows up, there's skulls of everything around. I mean, they've been feeding these trees.
Good point.
Jon, as a matter of fact, in a wolf dream in the books, sees Bran through a weirwood tree through Ghost's eyes. He don't really know what's going on, but he smells a boy, and then he smells a wolf, and then he also smells death around the weirwood tree. So Jon has to be the sacrifice. He's the guy. He's been the mediator the entire time. His blood is what matters here. R+L J was hyped up to be everything because it is.
I'll be damned.
His blood has to feed the weirwood trees in the Isle of Faces to allow Bran to do something as far as being the last Green Seer, and that will essentially end dragons and White Walkers. There cannot be both. There has to be all or none.
Okay.
And that would now Dany will live. Dany can live. They just can't have dragons. You can't have blood bonds with dragons anymore, and you can't have blood bonds with ghosts anymore, and direwolves and magic. That's all got to be gone. Again, Jon's blood, maybe with the help of Howland Reed.
True.
As far as being, because the whole light, people are asking about Lightbringer. They're going to ask about Lightbringer. What about, it could be Dany doing the reverse Nisa thing and sticking him, but that doesn't necessarily mean the sword's going to be aflame. It's just the sacrifice that matters. I've said before, the Nisa thing, I think that it is Valyrian steel recipe, so I don't see Sam, although he may figure out the recipe, I don't see them trying to produce with Gendry a bunch of Valyrian steel swords. Who are you going to kill for that when it takes fire and blood? That's the house words of Targaryen. And I believe Heartsbane is going to be the sword to do that, as far as Jon having to die in a sacrifice, because Sam is carrying with him Heartsbane for a reason. And Jon actually may have to die by fire. We have a lot of hints from that as far as Melisandre goes, and we had the little joke that he made to Ed at the wall after he was resurrected, or unless he just came back to life on his own. He said something like, "Is that you in there?" He's like, "Yeah, I think so. You don't have to burn my body quite yet." So we got a little evidence that he may have to actually die by fire, by fire and, blood. Obviously, winter is coming was a warning because of the connection to the Starks. We mentioned that in parts 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
The Night King is a Stark, or was a Proto-Stark. But this thing has to end in a balance. And like I said, I think it's Jon, his blood, that's what matters. That's what's so important about all this. Otherwise, it's just a story about a bastard who came to be something.
Yeah. And
it can't be just that. So Jon has to go. And that's the bittersweet part, because we're going to have all this war-torn country.
Yeah, buddy.
A lot of people are going to die. Jon's
Some
going to have to live.
might be wiped out completely.
Yeah, exactly. Jon's going to have to live. Jon's going to have to die. He's going to have to go away, essentially. Dany will live. And you read my brain or something, because
we talked.
They will have a child. And she will be pregnant again, just like in the books, when, that was the whole part of her prophecy. So in a sense,
the reason we talked about it is because you said, and there's nothing wrong with that, because the Targaryens, they inbred a lot anyway.
They did, and that's a good point. I'm glad you said that, actually, because it's not that they didn't do it to keep their pretty hair.
Right.
They did it because there was a real blood bond with dragons in those days that didn't require a damn horn.
To keep that bond strong.
The horn is a supplement to them losing that blood bond.
Makes sense.
So Dragonbinder from the books that Euron has was a supplement to the real blood magic, the fire blood magic that the original Targaryens and Valyrians had, the Dragon Lords.
Very cool.
So that's what the horns are for, I think. They are basically, they were starting to lose that through interbreeding with other people.
Yeah.
And that was a kind of a thing to bind dragons because they lost the art of hatching eggs, and Dany came across it again with the blood magic. So that's the way I think in pretty good detail. Like I said, to kind of recap, Jon dies, Dany lives. They do have a, we don't know if it's a son or daughter. That will be a very accepted person as a ruler if there's still that kind of system. Although I think that system changes. I think that Dany institutes, sees what Jon did and how he rallied people together, and she continues and institutes at least some kind of change. It might not be overnight. It may not be a full, republic or democracy, but it's going to be some kind of individual states. We're going to see, I think Yara may live and rule the Iron Islands, for example. Sansa, Queen in the North. She is going to be the Queen in the North. That fulfills her prophecy, kind of what I was saying about being a lady.
Yep.
There's not going to be that Iron Throne.
No, I
that's
believe
gone.
that too.
But anyway, so like you said, a lot of changes as far as women in power, more of the Dornish style. Dorne is kind of the model for the whole entire Seven Kingdoms, I think.
Not a bad model.
So I think that's what Dorne's in there for a little bit as far as their rules, and they don't care about bastardy and all that shit.
Yeah.
So I think that's the ending, that's the basic idea, and don't forget Tyrion.
Oh, yeah.
Tyrion's going to be sitting there, because he's a survivor. He's going to be sitting there at Casterly Rock.
I love this.
As Lord or whatever with his new wife. Maybe him and Sansa are married, and maybe they're at Winterfell or vice versa. But wherever it's going to be, sipping on gin and juice. No, sipping on Imp's Delight.
Imp's Delight.
With his friends.
That's going to be
because
awesome.
He said that when he said that in season 6. And this will probably be in the books too.
That's gonna be
I just knew that he literally just told you how it was going to end. As far as his
I think
ending.
that's great that you grabbed that out of there.
So I think that he's going to actually do that.
When you said that the other day, I was like, damn, that's awesome. I should have thought of that.
Now, really quickly, I do have kind of an alternate ending. It follows the same ideas as far as balance and symmetry and how this has to end, but I think it's also possible that if it's going to end where there is a pact, essentially, where everybody continues to exist as far as magic and White Walkers kind of go back to where they came from and all that, I think it's a possibility with the symmetry that Dany has to marry the Night King. Jon has to set that up in some way, and that could be Dany's third betrayal, because in the books there are some betrayals and fires and stuff she must light. Everything's in threes, and I think it's a possibility that Dany has to marry the Night King. We saw that in season 6 where she told Daario, I might have to marry somebody, for political alliances. And we all kind of think, okay, that's going to be Jon. It could be Gendry or somebody else. But honestly, because there's not really that many other bachelors to choose from in Westeros as far as our main characters go, what if she inadvertently was talking about the Night King and she doesn't even know it yet, because that could have been part of the agreement before. And that kind of ties into the Night King story as well. So anyway, that's just kind of an alternate idea I thought about that I think is possible, because it still fits the whole balance thing, everything kind of repeating itself, and everything kind of ending with a little bit of harmony there, with a balance between ice and fire. So anyway, I guess that I think I summarized that okay. I'm probably left some things out, but yeah, I think if I would say for survivors, Dany, Tyrion, Bran. Now, Bran won't have magic anymore either.
True.
Bran's going to be normal.
Which means,
or maybe there is, I don't know. It's hard to say. But if you got the balance thing, he can't be magical either.
Will he retain a lot of his knowledge?
Yeah, I think he would remember.
Which would be killer,
because that would be something that him and Sam could get together and write these histories.
Write the histories of it.
If Sam continues as far as the Citadel, there will be no more Night's Watch.
Wow,
that's
what a change.
No longer needed. So you don't have people going sent to the wall for stuff anymore. There's no wall. There's no big gate between this race and this race. Yeah. That's what all this is about. It's back to balance, and then with the destruction of the White Walkers and dragons, the seasons go back to normal.
Stone men go away because magic.
Well, that's really more of a disease, I guess. I'm not really sure, but I mean, you'll see. Yeah, that's a good point.
Red magic.
You will see more advancements in the next couple of books in medicine and stuff in the Citadel.
Oh, cool.
It's going to be less and less of this mystical stuff and guessing, and where you're going to actually start to see scientific advancements in this culture.
That's cool.
Is what I'm saying.
I do have to ask you this question. It's on my head because it will be asked in the first 5 questions on the comments if I don't.
I'm sure.
Will we see an ice dragon?
No. I mean, I don't think so.
I don't want to. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I just
I don't think so. I mean, and we talked about this in part 3, I think it was, when we had first, when somebody sent me that one part of the leak, because I have not read the leaks. But we did get that one part about the dragon. I won't say it here, but I don't buy it.
Yeah.
That part of it.
How hard it was and how special Danny needed to be to hatch these eggs and bring dragons back. To know that there's one up frozen in the wall just, to me, makes that weak. You know?
Yeah. I've never bought the ice dragon theory in the wall. I mean, I could see, I won't mention it here for spoilers. Well, of course, we're kind of just guesstimating.
Yeah.
This is all really
if it's a spoiler, hell yeah.
It's spoilery, but we're speculating. Mm-hmm. But I don't buy that one part concerning Viserion. Now, they will die. They will die. I have no doubt at the end of this, they're dead. Okay. Because, including Drogon, that's just the way it's got to be. But, to go back really quick to the balance thing and all that, and the Dream of Spring, the last book, it's going to be a decimated land. People are dead everywhere. Kind of like you said, I can see that scene happening right there, where, White's, we had said that before, where I think if the Night King dies, the magic's gone, they drop where they're at. And everybody, you have a very few people left. I mean, literally, winter has killed a lot of people itself.
True, because of crops and everything else,
and
motherfucker,
famine and cold, and so very few people left. But the few people left are no longer divided. They are together. They're not so much worried about the name of their house versus Westeros itself. And then you have a little hint of a dream of spring.
Well, all this is happening. In Westeros, what about Essos? What's going to happen there? New books?
Yeah, I mean, in the books, it's implied that this, because these original prophecies come from, or some of the prophecies come from, for example, Ashai. Now, George R. Martin has said we'll never see that in the book, that city.
Okay.
But it's really far east. And then if you had the 5 forts above Yeti, the 5 forts is essentially, a lot of people don't know unless you're a book reader, it's almost another wall. It's just 5 forts lined up in between, a lake and a mountain range. I mentioned it a couple times. I may have, yeah. So there seems to be
parallel you were trying to draw.
Right. There was a parallel between a wall over here and a wall over there. And so Essos apparently had seen stuff like this before, but now in the show, I don't think we see Essos again.
There's got to be some cool shit going on over there, though.
Yeah, I mean,
you just don't know about.
You just don't know because now in the books, it may even in the books, I don't think there will be as much emphasis on Essos in the final 2 as there will be on Westeros.
Okay, cool.
But all in all, whatever happens is similar. I mean, I don't think, because again, he said the continents weren't connected, so I don't see White Walkers being over there necessarily. Because if it happened over there before, there used to be an Arm of Dorne, but that was before people came over here. So the timelines, again, are all screwed up. And that makes you question the timelines in the first place.
I'd like to throw a disclaimer out here. Guys, we had to put our money where our mouth is, and we're making this guess really early in the game if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, give us some slack a little bit. There'll probably be
gentle.
A Dragon Raised by Wolves Part 5 after we see some of the next season. At least some of it to maybe clarify some things for us. And definitely I could see a Dragon Raised by Wolves Part 5 after the season.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We're, there's a lot of good videos out there about the ending of Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good articles about the ending of Game of Thrones, I'm sure, but there's not a lot of detailed stuff. I mean, it's kind of like, well, Jon's going to be the mediator.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's not anything against those videos or articles, because most of those are well written and they're great videos. But I wanted to go ahead while it's early on purpose.
Yes.
Throw out a few details, and they're guesses. They're guesses.
Just a guess.
I think if I would for another guess, actually, I mean, I think I'm pretty close on the location and the general idea. But now, the details, I mean, they could be completely off.
Right.
And that's great. That's fine. I'm not afraid to be wrong, is what I'm saying. So, I mean, we did it very, very early because you got a lot of book left to read.
And I didn't put the Hound as a survivor, and I want him to be. The change of his storyline.
I agree,
You
but I
know?
think, like we said, I think it will be almost a beautiful death
It will
if he
be.
goes out with fire, saving somebody or something to that effect. But anyway, guys, I think we're good.
I think so.
I think we threw a lot of stuff out there, so yeah, I tried to
Bring
get as
on the
much detail
questions.
as can, and go back and we purposely didn't talk about, like, try to repeat all this stuff from parts 1 through 3,
Right.
Because we
You can
went
go
over a
back and
lot
watch
of
those,
stuff
yeah.
to kind of get to this conclusion. You know, we went through every single one of these stories: the Night's King and the Pact of Ice and Fire, and the Tourney of Harrenhal, and the tragedy at Summerhall, and all these backstories to kind of pull these little bits and pieces and from these chapters and the show as well.
We'll have some epic Q&As after this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This
You
will,
know?
and I hope that's the goal here.
Yeah.
I mean, I may be way off, you may be way off, maybe you're right and I'm wrong, or we're pretty much
We're
on
close,
the same page.
yeah. And I
But the
drew
point
it
being
off
is-
from our conversation,
The
so
point,
it's
yeah,
your guess, really.
Yeah, the point being is that, you know, you guys let us know in the comments. What do you think? Do you like some of these ideas, or some of them way off? Maybe you can add to them. You know, maybe you can spot something I said that was mistaken. I mean,
and we're all
vice
going
versa.
to put it together.
Right, that's
you
the
know,
idea.
When we do this again, our next guest
Yeah.
will be closer and closer because of you guys and us. And I got to give him a lot of props, man. This guy really, really studies this stuff hard and educates me a lot behind the scenes, man. And, you know, believe me,
Yeah, we have.
I
Some
know
good,
how lucky I am.
We have some good videos sitting out on that front
You
porch.
damn right.
Yeah, we don't
I
ever
wish you guys could
turn
be
a camera on
follow-up.
for.
And and we really do want to do a live Q&A
Yeah,
with you.
and actually, people have been asking more and more.
Cool.
So we'll go ahead and say we're going to start, you know, because we got a long time till season 7.
We do.
So I think we're going to start Sundays. I'm not sure exactly which Sunday, but Sundays at 9 o'clock we're going to start doing live.
We've talked
for
about
about
it a
an hour and a half maybe.
Yeah.
Just some live, ask us anything, Q&As, Game of Thrones, whatever, and just have some fun. Basically to replace. There's no Walking Dead. There's no Westworld. There's no Game of Thrones. So we'll go live and just
And it's bringing us
hang out.
closer. It's like breaking the fourth wall or whatever. We've really been talking about this for a long time, and be sure, like Chris said in the last, was it just the Q&A we shot the other day,
Yeah.
be sure your notifications are on, because
Yes.
when we do live, that's the only way. I mean, you'll get a notification early so you can be ready for it.
Yeah,
So-
and actually I got some more messages today about people having to resubscribe again.
Oh, wow.
So I got a couple of those again. So again, guys, make sure you're subscribed. If you have been, make sure you're still subscribed. And be sure to click on that little bell beside the subscribe button for notifications. YouTube's going through this thing right now. We talked about in our Q&A yesterday that there'll probably be a link to that at the end of this video. But, you know, if you've been on YouTube enough, you've probably seen bigger YouTubers, you know, complaining about it, and rightfully so, because it's broken. Views are down 30-40%. You know, people are
Which
being
is a
unsubscribed
big
from channels. Yeah, I mean, it's huge, especially if it's your livelihood. So be sure, you know, you like this video and leave us a comment, you know, interact, you know, share it and that type of thing, and make sure you're still subscribed and click that notification button. So anyway, starting on Thursday, there's a new series coming from me every single damn day. So I hope you guys enjoy that. So that'll help combat that a little bit. I think more frequent uploads and, you know, videos that are over 10 minutes and stuff like that. Anyway, the point being is just be sure to make sure you're still subscribed and check that notification button. So anyway, guys, be sure to let us know what you think in the comments below. I know we had a lot of information in the last 4 videos for this series. So as I said, be sure to subscribe to get everything. Make sure that notification's checked. Thank you so much to you guys on Patreon. I really appreciate it. And a special shout out to my Patreon Smokescreen executive producers, Hoss Griffin and Vol Guy 10. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you